Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Forever Fast podcast. They went with Fast Forever. I still like mine. Maybe would have got this podcast some more views, some more listens, but hey, same words. How about that? But yeah, it's been a while since the last episode, and I hope you're all doing well. I really appreciate you listening, whether you comment or not. I'd love to hear from you in that. But we got some news because a while back, Vince said that he and the studio were planning on sometime in mid 2027 for Fast and Furious 11. And now it seems it's locked in March of 2028. Not crazy about that either. This is something I'd put out in May or June. So March is kind of an odd time. But Fast Forever, I was close. It's okay. I still like Forever Fast though. Maybe they'll switch the words around, but this also means, like I've talked about in past episodes, so they totally scrapped the bridge movie, where Dante goes after Hobbs, unless it's all just going to be part of this last one. But that's a lot. Now they could get it over with, say in the intro, if they do like a long James Bond kind of intro, where he goes after Hobbs. And then the movie starts out and Dante is going after, our other main and recurring characters. And we just assume that Dom and his son are dead, but then they show up and they explain, and whatever happens with Dante with that arc. I really hope they don't sideline him, kind of like what happened with Cypher. But then we have Giselle coming back, and, Han, Ramsey, Tej, Roman, are they dead? What's happening with Deckard Shaw? Because he's going to help his mom, his family, but he could be falling into a trap. So I really don't think this will be the last one. It depends on what storylines they wrap up, and if they do want to save some stuff for spin-offs, but Hobbs and Shaw was a big hit, but where are the other spin-offs? And with the budget, I posted this actually yesterday. I was watching a podcast, the Eastern Shore Talk podcast. They had Chris Moore on, and he's a famous producer. He's worked with Ben and Matt and Project Greenlight and all that over the years, American Pie. And they had him on the show and actually commented. It's funny because this is announced today, right after I commented on this, because I said it's still up in the air, but I understand all that star power. How do you make a movie for cheaper? And I think as long as this one doesn't go over budget, if they can make it for, what, $250 million? We'll see. But it's quite a gap, considering the cliffhanger ending from Fast X. And I just assumed they had everything planned out for the two-part finale. But I know I talked about this in a recent episode, and I don't like getting into people's personal situations, their lives and that. But I was saying, The Rock dropped a ton of weight recently. Vin had put on some pounds. And I said, so I think it's going to be a while until they even shoot this. And March 2028, so that's still a little over 2 years away. But I saw Vin recently, some appearance, and he was already looking better. And The Rock, I'm not sure. Maybe they just completely scrapped his character. I think he's going to be killed off screen. So like I said, they scrapped that whole bridge movie, which I think is a mistake. Because that could fill in a lot, and then he goes and helps. Like, let's say Hobbs is almost killed by Dante, gets away, and then he gets a call from Deckard.
I need your help. My family's in trouble. You know what I mean?
I'll be right there, brother. But The Rock, I don't know, because people are saying, just like Jason Statham, they do so many projects in that, and it's not that they're not a big draw anymore, but there's controversies, and then people are like, well, this guy plays the same thing in every movie, but But hopefully, I just hope that the movie pays off. And like I said, with the budget, sure, the studio, they're probably still negotiating everything. And maybe they're like, nope, everybody on that plane in the end died. So there's 4 stars they don't have to bring back. And there's just so much. But this gives them time because let's say they don't start filming for a year from now. And if they do have, these guys get back to their weights to match, in the last movies. Because for The Rock, it's been a while. He did that cameo at the end of X to set up that bridge movie, but it's just unfortunate because $340 million production budget for the last one, so you double that for marketing, and it didn't make a billion for whatever reason. By the way, if you haven't already, listen to my review of the movie because the action is superb. Lewis is a great director, but there was just some nonsense throughout. And I don't know, because if we do another send-off kind of for Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor, a lot of people are speculating about that. So I'm sure we'll get something like that, even if we just see him. Vin or Dom says, good to see you again. And we're like, perfect, Because just like what Justin Lin did at the end of Fast and Furious 9, because we don't actually see Brian. I just, Dom says, hold on, waiting on one more person, and then his car pulls up, and I was like, perfect. Because that doesn't take away from 7, but do we need to send off his character for a third time? Or they reference him, but I don't know. But I'm surprised there haven't been a lot of spin-offs. There's so much to do with these characters. But I'm curious what you think, so leave some comments, and I'm excited for this, but we'll see. I think it'll be successful, especially given, the 5-year gap in between movies. And this gives, the studio and everyone involved, the cast and crew time. They can lock down a script if they haven't already. They move that title around, I'm telling you. Because people looking up Forever Fast to be like, oh, finally my podcast will show up. But I love making these and that. I just, that's funny. That's the title they went with. Fast Forever. I don't think that Dominic and his son Brian died at the end of Fast X. Maybe little Brian. Just maybe. But definitely not Dom. And like I said, they'll show... I think Brian and Mia are going to show up because they knew about that spot. In what was it, Portugal? I can see them or Mr. Nobody showing up in a chopper. And Dante just left because they'd see the explosion. And, but maybe save that for later on when Dom shows up. And kind of like when Han resurfaced and started telling his story. But don't cut away to something. Like, explain it. How did you survive? Because maybe they went for a swim. They just swam far away and avoided all the shrapnel and that. But, yeah, it's been a while. I mean, it's already been 3 years since Fast X. So hearing this, I'm glad they locked in a date, but it was like, oh, it's supposed to be 2027. But it makes sense. But yeah, let me know what you think. Leave some comments. Share this with other movie enthusiasts, Fast and Furious fanatics and that. And I know they always say with these movies, we're going back to, the basics, the street racing. And it's like, well, it's definitely not about street racing. It hasn't been for a long time. Now, you can include them like when Dante and Dom raced. That was thrilling. They did a great job with that. But the movie isn't about that. So have a race in it. If they want to go back to LA, we've been back to LA more than once. Fast X, we were in the new house. Rebuilt exactly the same, I believe, pretty much. But it seems like some people are confused because they're like, this isn't about this anymore. It's like, well, no, even the first movie. I mean, you had, quite a few races, especially Too Fast, Too Furious, Tokyo Drift. But then they made these characters even more interesting. And I like the flow of most of the stuff, but I don't know. So I'm curious what the focus will be in this one. If Dante is going to hunt the rest of our crew, because anybody who ever helped them out. And Dom not being, one step ahead, I like that. Because at the end of Fast X, if they ruin that, they're like, oh, he knew he planted those bombs. It's like, no, he didn't. Because he's looking at Little B like, oh, this might be it. But we'll see. But because Fast X didn't cross 1 billion, I'm not sure, because this one has to have some really good trailers, good promotion. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's 3 hours or even more than that. Because like I said, there's a lot of stuff to wrap up. If this is it for this whole crew, the Fast family. I mean, the nice thing is, because unlike Mission Impossible, because I recorded a review about the Final Reckoning, because it tries to retcon things, connect the earlier movies, and they were just never set up like that. Whereas here, you retcon stuff, and even with Han, it was like, okay, so he was a hologram, but when did he make the switch? Because Takashi punched him, we saw that. So then he didn't actually get in the car, but little things like that, it's like, okay. Because these movies are pretty much, I mean, they go back to a lot of stuff, and it works. Whereas Mission Impossible, it's like, no, these are all individual things. But I wonder what's going to change in this new one. I like that Lewis is coming back. I'm hoping Justin Lin can, maybe direct, like, Paul's final farewell in this. I'm sure we're going to see him. I know the Walker brothers, I believe they're involved again. Because they could be stand-ins, but now you can just use AI. Because I know for Fury 7 they use a combination, CGI, had his brother as a stand-ins, and then, copied, pasted his face onto theirs, and then used unused footage. But I think it'll be even more convincing in this new one. And it's going to be like a full scene, like they all sit down at the end, whoever survives, and they have one last, one last for us, celebration barbecue. Because now, hypothetically, if they came to me and said, we need you to write this, you're a fan of the franchise, like, how do you end something like this? Put a bow on it. Who lives? Who dies? Because no matter how you kill off a character, they'll be like, oh, they survived, or it was their evil twin or something. Is Phoenix going to come back? I wanted to see him fight Dom. That would have been awesome. But, yeah, I really can't tell. I mean, there have been a lot of delays, and, like I said with the budget of the last one, it's like 340. It's a good movie, but it's like, geez, I thought that was a budget for 10 and 11. I definitely want to see this in theaters, just like Fast X. I was sick when that came out, and I still went and watched it, because if they just do now, depending on the budget, they may have to be like, well, we can't put this in theaters, or straight to Netflix, Hulu, Prime, whatever. I'd be disappointed. Because this is something big, loud, lots of action. But who knows, because 2 years, I mean, people are always talking about, the movie industry and that. And like I said, that podcast I was watching when they had Chris Moore on, they're talking about the movie industry and, how do people make deals now? Nothing on the back end costs so much, and how do you make your money back? But I'm sure this would still be in theaters, unless they completely go away. You never know. With this Netflix deal, we'll see what happens. If they acquire, Warner Brothers, Paramount Plus, whatever. Because 2 years, I mean, a lot could happen. Because I like that I can, watch a movie right now. Pretty much anything except for what's in theaters that's not out on demand yet. But this for the big finale, I mean, if it really is the last one, I could see it making $1 billion. And March of 2028 tells me, because I know this year, at the end of this year, we have Avengers Doomsday. We have Secret Wars after that, I think, next year. So March of 2028 tells me that May and June are locked up with some big titles. And Fast and Furious is a big title, but like I said, with Fast X making, I believe it was around 700 million, which is great if your movie costs, a few hundred million, but otherwise it's like, or a couple hundred million rather. It's like you want to make a profit, and it's like, ooh, what happened? I mean, now granted that 2023, we're still in a pandemic. But I can't wait to see, a teaser trailer. Of course, official trailers, and I just worry that Momoa's Dante is going to be pushed to the side because they could say, like, well, it didn't make money because of him. Was his star power fading? The Rock, his last movie, tanked. And it's like, geez, maybe these guys just pushed to the side. And so I'm worried it won't. I think Lewis, it'll match up to his Fast X, but maybe so many changes. And we're like, what happened to so-and-so? And they're like, oh, we just didn't address them. But of course, I'm curious how it's going to end. I mean, that's the big wonder. And do you set it up for spin-offs? Do you put a bow on it? Like, this is it? Or Fast and Furious 12, if this one does well? Because, of course, studio wants to keep making them. Like I said, there's plenty of opportunities for spin-offs in that and prequels, future sequels. But anyways, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. And like I said, I'd love to hear from you. And podcast is available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, but we'll see what happens. Could be pushed back to 2029, who knows? Because again, I think that March, that tells me like, oh, there's a lot of competition, in the summer of 2028. But fast forever. Thanks for listening to Forever Fast. I'll see you next time. Ride or die.